المتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد النبي العالمين. We begin with a discussion of the travelers finding Yusuf alayhi salam in the well. And as the person who was going to grab the water and take the water out, he sees Yusuf alayhi salam latched onto the bucket. At that moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, after he says, Ya bushra hada ghulam, the next ayah says, وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودًا وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. That they sold him for a very minimal or a very cheap amount of darahim in a currency. What's interesting here is oftentimes people refer this verse to the Aziz of Misr, like when the minister of Misr purchased Yusuf, they refer to this verse, that the minister purchased Yusuf for a very miserly amount of money. But the verse actually does not indicate the Aziz of Misr. It is not referring to, according to the strongest opinion of, as is mentioned in Tafsir Alusi and Tafsir Qurtubi, that this does not refer to the minister of Egypt. That's the next verse. This verse refers to what then? It refers to the brothers of Yusuf. That as they noticed that they were keeping an eye out, or somehow they were able to discover that someone took Yusuf, and they followed, and they were able to find these people who took their brother. The story mentions at that point, this is exactly where this incident takes place of وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ. That they went ahead and they sold Yusuf. So you want to take our brother, you can take him, but we got to make a buck off this as well. We want to make something out of it. And because they were just attempting to get rid of him anyways, their goal was to not have Yusuf around them. They were happy someone wanted to take Yusuf off their hands without it being their liability. So they were actually happy about it. So they went ahead and said, hey, you can take him, but you have to pay us something. So وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ is actually referring to the brothers of Yusuf, that they sold him for, the word bakhs, in one tafsir it means dhulm. That they sold him they sold him with an amount that was an oppressed amount. Oppressed meaning that he should never have been sold. Bakhs also means haram. They sold him for money that was haram. So the money that they made from this sale was money as an oppressor. Or it was a sale where they made some money which was completely haram for them, because Yusuf was obviously a free person. Or bakhs the word actually means manqus, from the word naqasa, which means a deficient amount of money. They sold him for a very low amount. Not that any person should be sold for any amount, but Yusuf alayhi salam, being as great and as unique and special as he was, they sold him for dimes and nickels. And in Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says that they sold him for about 18 dirhams or 20. In some narrations, it says 12. So for a very small amount of money they sold him. Why? Allah says, وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. Because they had no raghba. They had no desire to keep Yusuf. If someone came and took Yusuf off their hands for no money, they would have been happy with it. So the word zuhud means to be abstinent, right? So they were abstaining in wanting to keep Yusuf with them. They didn't want to have Yusuf alayhi salam burden them and to carry on top of, to have to carry that weight of Yusuf being in the well on top of them. The fact that he's taken and he's never coming back, alhamdulillah, he's gone. Our plan worked. So وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ is referring to the brothers of Yusuf. Sometimes in the tafsir, people use this to refer to the minister of Egypt. No, this is referring to the brothers of Yusuf, that they had absolutely no care, concern, excitement in wanting to have Yusuf around them. So if someone comes to you and you don't like your car, or you don't like your phone or your watch, I'll give you $20. Bro, I'm trying to get rid of that. I have to go to the junkyard and pay for it to go there. I have to pay for it. So if you're going to take it off my hand and give me $500, be my guest. I'd rather you do that. So they gave him, it says bakhsin. What does bakhs mean? Darahim ma'duda is the second part. وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَ. That they sold him for a very cheap or miserly amount of wealth. And an explanation of that is, it was just, they were darahim that you can count, which I mentioned about the amount of 18 darahim. But it is also mentioned that they gave him 18 dirhams, the brothers, and they split it within each other. Or they gave 20 dirhams and 2, because there were 10 brothers, right? Because Binyamin wasn't a part of it, so 2 each. They split it up. And it says 18 because one of the brothers, the eldest brother, didn't take his share. So that's where the opinion of 18 comes, right? That's how that one comes. So everyone got 2. He said, I don't want anything. I don't want my hands to be dirty with this. And also it says that this bakhs refers to the fact that they gave him 18 dirhams or 20 dirhams, and they also gave them like some sandals. Hey, take these sandals as well, like add this to the sale. So this is such a cheap thing to do, to sell your brother. The narration of Imam Qurtubi actually mentions something pretty interesting that I wanted to share, where as Yusuf alayhi salam was moving on, and he was kind of leaving his brothers for the final time, he went ahead and started speaking to his brothers. And I wanted to share the conversation that he had with his brothers. He says that the moment he realized that his brothers were selling him, he turned towards his brothers and he started having this conversation, right? So he says, فَقَالَ لَهُ لِمَا جِئْتَ فَقَالَ جِئْتُ لِأُوَدِّعُكُمْ وَأُسَلِّمُ عَلَيْكُمْ. قُومُوا إِلَى مَنْ أَتَاكُمْ يُسَلِّمُ عَلَيْكُمْ. When they come to him, he said, why are you guys here for? He said, we came here to say salam to you. We came here to say salam, right? Like we want to say salam to you. He says, hey, I don't want your salam. He says, I just want to say to you that you are selling a free man. And you are taking the son of a prophet and selling him like he's a slave. How would you feel? Like, don't you have any guilt conscience within you? And he continues speaking to them until the brothers tell the individual purchasing Yusuf, please take him out. We don't want to hear his voice, because obviously now they're hearing the reality of what they're doing. The story mentions, and this is mentioned in Tafsir Alusi. It mentions, before that he also says to his brothers, حَفِظَكُمُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَإِن ضَيَّعْتُمُونِي آوَاكُمُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَإِن طَرَدْتُمُونِي رَحِمُكُمُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَإِن لَمْ تَرْحَمُونِي. He says, may Allah protect you even though you harmed me. May Allah preserve you even though you wasted me. May Allah have mercy upon you even though you showed me no mercy. And this is consistent with his personality, that when he was the oppressed and when he was weak, he had a heart to forgive. And these were not words that he said, because it was proven that when he had power, that response never changed. Oftentimes, our response changes based upon our situation and need. So how do you know when a person, when you say that we like genuine people, we want people to be genuine, what does that mean to be genuine? It means that our response doesn't change based upon our situation and our level of strength. Like, I'm ready to forgive you, even though I now have the power to do something about it. In Yusuf alayhi salam's story, as did the Prophet ﷺ when he went for Fath Makkah. Then he says, فَبَيْنَمَا عَلَى الرَّاحِلَ إِذَا مَرَّ بِقَبْرِ. So as they were traveling to Misr, they passed by the tribe of Canaan, where he's from. And they passed by a cemetery. And he asked the people of his caravan that were taking him, is it okay if we stop by over here? Because this is the place where my mother is buried. Can I stop by, just say salam to the grave of my mother? So they said, no problem, go ahead. فَلَمَّا أَبْصَرَ الْقَبْرِ لَمْ يَتَمَالَكْ عَنْ رَمَى بِنَفْسِهِ عَلَيْهِ فَاعْتَنَقَهُ وَجَعَلَ يَبْكِي وَيَقُولُ. So the moment he gets to the grave of his mother, obviously his mother passed away according to the most authentic narration, at the birth of Binyamin. The birth of Binyamin is how she passed away. So he sees his mother's grave. Imagine, like, heartbroken, betrayed by your own family, no one to support you. And you were like, man, I wish my mother was around. So he rushes And he said, the narration mentions, لم يتمالك. He did not have the power to hold himself back. أن رمى نفسه على قبر أمي. Rama literally means to throw. Throw. That's what Rami means. He threw himself upon the grave of his mother. Right? And he starts to cry. And he says, يا أمّا ارفعي رأسك من التراب حتى ترى ولدك مقيدا. Oh mother, I wish you could just pop your head out from the dirt. I wish you could just peek out. Just peek and see the state of your son. You just look outside and say that your son has become a slave. Ya umma ikhwati fil jubbi tarahunani. Right? He's like, my brothers were the ones who threw me inside of this well. And there's no one here to help me. There's no one here to forgive me. And he continues speaking to his mother. And as this is taking place, the caravan people just start crying. Because they're hearing Yusuf alayhi salam break down. And they don't know the whole story behind what's happening. They don't even know who he is. They're just robbers, or they're just just goons. They saw, a piece of merchandise for them on the side of the road. They picked it up and they're going to sell it. And they begin to cry. And at this point, Jibreel alayhi salam comes down from the heavens. And he says, oh Yusuf, stop. He says, stop. This is enough. At one point he says, Allahumma, and as he's doing this, وَقَدْ تَمَرَّغَ بِالتُّرَابِ وَالدُّمُوعُ فِي وَجْهِهِ. He's taking the dirt of his mother and he's holding in his hands and he's just crying, missing his mother. Then he raises his hands to the heavens. This is a dua that you rarely hear about the story of Yusuf, which is authentically mentioned in the books of tafsir. He says, Allahumma, in kana li khati'atan. He said, oh Allah, if there is a sin that I have committed, if there's a mistake that I have made and therefore you are making me struggle. Sometimes people think that I've done something wrong and that is why Allah has tested me. Though that mindset should motivate us, it should never paralyze us, right? It's okay to think it, maybe I could do better. It's fine. But it shouldn't take us away and remove our ability to rely upon Allah. Oh man, I've done so much wrong, I can't rely upon Allah. No, it's the opposite. Allahumma in kana li khati'a أخلقت وجهي عندك فبحرمة أبي الكرام إبراهيم وإسحاق ويعقوب أن تعفو عني وترحمني يا أرحم الراحمين. After crying in front of his mother, he turns to Allah and says, oh Allah, if I have committed a sin, and because of that sin you are testing me, I ask you, O Allah, through your honor, بوجهك الكريم, through your honor, وبحرمة آبائي, and through the honor and sanctity of my forefathers that were prophets, which is okay to do. Like the idea of mentioning the Prophet ﷺ in our dua it's part of our dua, it's part of the tradition, right? Beyond that, there's an academic discussion about tawassul, whether or not we're allowed to mention the names of anyone else. And that is a discussion for the classroom, where there are two opinions that are found within the scholarly books. Anyone being stubborn upon one means that they haven't studied the other. Because there's enough leeway and there's enough conversation for both to be heard and to be understood within an academic dialogue, not within, per se, a class of tafsir. So he makes this dua, because of your love for my father Yaqub and Ishaq and Ibrahim, forgive me, free me, وَتَرْحَمَنِي يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Look at what's happening to me. فَضَجَّتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى عِنْدَ ذَلِكَ فقال تبارك وتعالى يا ملائكتي هذا نبيي وابن أنبيائي وقد استغاث بي وأنا مغيثه ومغيث المستغيثين يا جبريل أدركه. When he makes his dua, all the angels rush to Allah and they're crying in front of Allah, and Allah says that this is Yusuf, who will be a prophet of mine, who is a son of prophets. Oh Jibreel, go down and see what he wants and support him. So Jibreel alayhi salam comes down from the heavens. فقال يا صديق الله. Sadiq, because his grandfather was Khalil. Sadiq is a rank that is, you can say below Khalil, or it's different from Khalil. This is why Abu Bakr was Siddiq. Ya Sadiq Allah, oh beloved friend of Allah. Oh friend of Allah. Sadiq is friend. Now Khalil is a higher level of a friendship that Ibrahim alayhi salam had. But he's connecting the dots for him, that I know the dua you made, and you used your father, grandfather, Khalilullah in your dua. So, Ya Sadiq Allah, ربك يقرئك السلام ويقول لك مهلا عليك فقد أبكيت ملائكة السماء السبع أتريد أن أطبق السماء على الأرض. He says, Oh Yusuf, Ya Sadiq Allah, O friend of Allah, your Lord, Rabbuka, your Lord is sending salam upon you. Allah is saying salam to you. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam. Your Lord is sending salam upon you. And He's saying, Mahlan alayk. Mahlan alayk. Easy up, man. Not easy up in your tears, easy up in your du'as. Easy up, hold back, take it easy. Take a step back. Mahlan alayk. Why? فَقَدْ أَبَكَيْتَ مَلَائِكَةِ السَّمَاوَاتِ السَّبْعِ. Because of your dua, all of the angels in the heavens have begun to cry. Your dua is so powerful. That's why he's saying, Mahlan. Chill out. Chill out, man. You've been heard. أَبَكَيْتَ مَلَائِكَةِ السَّمَاوَاتِ السَّبْعِ. The angels cannot control themselves. Like what happened at the Battle of Badr, where the Prophet ﷺ stood all night asking Allah for support. Hatta his shawl and his cloak that he was wearing on his shoulders fell off his back, and Abu Bakr had to come and console him from the back. The angels started to cry in the heavens, and therefore Allah sent the angels for the support of the Prophet ﷺ. They had yaqeen in there. You know, the reason why people rely. I just came from visiting my father, and he mentioned something very powerful. He said, the reason why people rely on certain things in this world is because they have conviction in it. And if you're able to remove the conviction of it, they will lose their reliance within it. I'll give you an example. People rely on certain car companies, right? So they have yaqeen in that car. That this is a good car to buy even if it's a used car. Because there's a level of conviction that has been built. We have conviction that if I don't carry the camera, but if I had a gun, there is conviction that if I shoot this and if it hits someone, it will harm them. Because there's yaqeen in it. So we rely on it to protect ourselves. Correct? Similarly, if you were able to remove the conviction, you also stop relying on it. Like Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah in his heart removed the conviction of the fire harming him. So now he did not expect the fire to harm him. If we remove our conviction from dunya, I'm not saying we remove our use of dunya, because that's impossible, that's why we're here. But if we remove our conviction from dunya, then our reliance upon it will be a little less. Meaning, having it and not having it will not make a person or break a person. Conviction is what creates reliance. How can a person have tawakkul without yaqeen? That reliance can only take place where there is conviction. And just like how we hope to remove our conviction from dunya, there are people who are working day and night to remove our conviction from akhirah. Remove our conviction from Allah. And because of that, our reliance upon Allah at times may not be what is expected to be. This is a dua. And these are examples that are shared in tafsir, not to highlight, the closeness of Yusuf to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would expect that he's a prophet. But to simply show that these words have impact. Just because we don't see it the same way, the dua of the oppressed, where the Prophet taught us, goes directly to Allah. Goes directly to Allah. So he says, hey, mahlan alayk. Take it easy. The angels are crying in the heavens. And then he says, Allah is saying, do you want that the sky tears open because of your dua? That's how heavy your dua is right now. Like the sky is about to tear open. فَقَالَ لَا جِبْرِيلٌ I have no need of that. Right? I don't want any of that. I'm just struggling with this. I'm struggling with this situation. And Jibreel alayhi salam again consoles him. Like imagine the one who comes to console you is Jibreel. Like he would come to the Prophet ﷺ to console him. coming to console Yusuf alayhi salam. So this is happening under the ayah of وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودًا. That he was sold, like, once, I'm not sure what, and I'm speaking out loud, I'm not sure what was more difficult for Yusuf to handle, alayhi salam. The fact that his brothers threw him in a well, or the fact that his brothers sold him as a slave. Right? Like, I get you don't want me around, but then you're making me become a slave. Right? You know who I am. We're from the same family. You feel comfortable making me a slave? And so he experienced betrayal once by being thrown into a well. Then he experiences it again by his brothers getting a few dimes off his sale. وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ, though they had no interest in keeping him. So the travelers continue حتى to reach Misr. When they reach Misr, why did they go to Egypt? This is one of the reasons why this surah was revealed as the background of revelation. That the people of Mecca who were not learned in the books of the scriptures, they asked the Jews and the Christians that give us some questions that if we ask the Prophet, we can expose that he's a false prophet. He's a fake. A'udhu billah. So give us some questions. Among the questions was this: how did Bani Israel go from Sham to Egypt? How did the people from Sham, Canaan, Palestine, Lebanon, end up in Misr, Bani Israel? How did that happen? And to answer that question, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this entire surah. That this now, the journey goes towards Misr. This is how Yusuf alayhi salam's family, the beginning of their journey in Misr began. This is where Bani Israel starts their journey in Misr. If Yusuf never went to Misr, we would not have Bani Israel in Misr. Everything is a qadr of Allah. We may not have had a pharaoh that was destroyed, because then there would be no Musa in Misr, because he's from the children of Yaqub, Bani Israel. All of this is being designed by Allah behind the scenes. And if we zoom in too much into our own life, we will lose our own reliance on qadr. Forget anyone else. We just zoom out in retrospect that, okay, Allah put me in that situation, but then because of that, I also was able to receive this. You start having more trust in Allah. But if a person has a mind that is always negative towards Allah's qadr, then naturally, there is no way this person can trust Allah's qadr, because they always have this negative thing in their head about it. Nonetheless, he is taken to Misr. And as he's taken to Misr, why was he taken to Misr firstly? Why wasn't he taken anywhere else? Now I'll make a point here as a quick comment, and we'll come back to this later on in the story. He was taken to Misr because Egypt and Misr, which is the only city in the Quran outside of Mecca that still holds its name. Misr. Right? It's a pretty cool concept. Misr was mentioned in the Quran as Misr. Where other countries are mentioned in the Quran, other cities are mentioned in the Quran, but through other names. Whether it's Yemen or other, like Sheba and so on and so forth. But Misr is mentioned as Misr. So they went to Egypt because Misr happened to be the economical capital of the world at that time. And therefore, being the treasurer or the finance minister of Egypt meant you were the finance minister of that entire region. People relied upon you. This is why Fir'aun, when he would say, أَلَيْسَ لِي مُلْكُ مِصْرَ وَهَذِهِ الْأَنْهَارُ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِي. That is the kingdom of Misr, not mine. Because it was the grand kingdom of that time. It's like in today's time, people saying that I am the leader of the free world, meaning United States of America. It's where the economy runs from. Or someone saying, whatever, China, whatever it is. The idea, that was Misr at that time. So they took him to Misr because they had a caravan that they were selling things. And they said, you know what? We have one more thing to sell. Let's make sure to sell him in Egypt, because this is where we can get the best sale and the best price for this child, or for Yusuf alayhi salam. So therefore they went to Misr. وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِصْرَ. So they reach Misr, they come to the marketplace to sell the other things that they also had, and they also had this quote-unquote, air quotes, slave for sale. The minister, the finance minister of Misr, the treasurer of Misr, sees Yusuf alayhi salam, and he says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and purchase him. And he purchases Yusuf alayhi salam, though it is very clear that he was young. He looked weak because he was so young. And this is after him leaving a well, traveling for all these days in the back of a caravan. He looks weak. However, he saw something in Yusuf. And he said, I'm going to buy Yusuf. This is why Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he says that there are three people historically who've had the best farsightedness or foresight in our history. The three people, in Arabic you say firasa, who've had the best and the greatest firasa, which means that they have such a far vision that they can see beyond what everyone else can think of. They see something beyond. They have such great firasa. In our terminology, that's like a scout. Like a scout. A scout can see a kid playing basketball in middle school, right? Because they have an eye for it. They have the firasa for basketball. And they can, in their mind, understand where this child will be in 10 years. And they will see whether or not it's worth investing in him, taking him to AAU basketball, and so on and so forth. Like how recruits do when they come to colleges and speak to kids who just started their journey. They have an eye for it. But people have firasa in different niches. But there are some people, who Abdullah Mas'ud says, who had the greatest firasa ever. Number one, the Aziz of Misr, the minister of Egypt. He had such great vision in knowing that Yusuf alayhi salam, though he was someone who looked weak, did not seem that he could give much value, because for the sake of the discussion, obviously this is not known like reality in our time, but for the sake of the discussion, when someone wants to buy a slave, they want to buy someone who's strong, they can do labor work, they can handle a load, they can manage, they're not like small and scrawny and weak, they're not young, they're able to do work, labor work. And Yusuf alayhi salam, at that point in his life, did not possess that. He saw beyond it. He said, no, I see something special in Yusuf. And he purchased him. This is number one. Number two, he says, the daughter of Shu'aib, who came back and told the father, استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. The daughter was the one who told the father, hire Musa alayhi salam. And verily the best hire is of a person who is competent, meaning strong, and trustworthy. I mean, you cannot get these two qualities cannot be substituted for anything. Person who is able, al-qawi means able, strong in their own field, and ameen, trustworthy. Because you can have people who are competent and they're able, but they're not trustworthy, and that brings no benefit. And sometimes you can have people who are trustworthy, but they just lack the skill set. Right? So al-qawi al-amin. So this young sister was able to see. Look, again, at that time, Musa alayhi salam was a fugitive. Who hires a fugitive? No one. Forget who marries one. Who hires one? On top of that, he's weak at this point, even though he can still lift the entire lid of the well. No one knows him there. When we hire someone, the first thing we ask is for a recommendation letter. We ask, where did you work before? We ask for how much experience you've had. How do I know you are capable? She saw none of this. She just saw a man in this minimal interaction, and she said to her father, I see something great in this person. Go ahead and hire him. The third individual, is Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu. This is a statement of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He said, Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, as he was about to leave this world and was deciding who would be the next Khalifa, he took shura from people. And all the elite companions, the Ashara Mubashara, and the leaders of the Ansar, each of them came, and when Abu Bakr radhiallahu anhu gave them his recommendation of Umar, they all said no. They said, no. He's going to be too rough on us. You were kind, you were gentle, though he was stern, but different personality. Different personality. We make Uthman the Khalifa. Make this person the Khalifa. Not Umar. Each person came and said the same thing. Some people, in their moments, Allah changes their life when that moment occurs. Right? And that moment will not change our life if we're waiting for it. We keep working. We keep struggling. We keep trying. And Allah will give us that moment that allows us to accelerate in the way we elevate. We have to keep trying. Like everyone's looking like, when's that moment going to come where I start praying tahajjud? Well, it's not going to come if you're not making an effort for it. When's that moment going to come where my heart becomes clear and clean and I start forgiving people like I hear about in the stories? Well, that's not going to come if I don't at least try to implement it. We hear about the moment where Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayhi became the Khalifa. And he walked into the masjid with like an entourage of horses. In our terminology, like of like escalades. Entourage. And when his name was announced, because his name was written by Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, the previous Khalifa, he didn't announce it because he knew if he announced it, they were going to cause mischief. So he just wrote the name. And his advisor is the one that read the name. And when his name was announced, he was like, what, me? I can't be that guy. I'm a youngster enjoying life. Though people always think that he was dishonest, or he changed his life from being a bad person. He was never a bad person. He simply changed his perspective of life. Not like he was a person of, haram in his life and sins. No. He was just a person who enjoyed luxury. He left all of his luxury. They say about him that the Umar that walked into the masjid and the Umar that walked out were not the same people. Not the same. Sometimes you walk into a janazah being different than when you walk out. You're not the same person. Sometimes you walk into like it could be like Mecca for Umrah and you walk out, you're not the same person anymore. Sometimes it could be, a moment of triumph, your graduation. Like, now it's changed. So after everyone saying, don't make him Khalifa, Abu Bakr says, Umar, why don't you come? And he says, I've been asking people and this and that, and I want to choose you to become the Khalifa. He says, and he starts crying, he said, please don't choose me. I can't handle it. I'm not the right guy for it. I don't want the leadership. Like, he didn't want it. And Abu Bakr says, the reason why I'm giving it to you is because you don't want it. The reason why I'm giving it to you is because you don't want it. You're not desiring it. Hence, I'm going to give it to you. So these were the three people who had the greatest farsightedness in seeing the greatness of the potential of an individual. And I find this to be very important, even if I can end at this, because this is a point that is rarely spoken about in the story of Yusuf. We're so used to looking at the surface of people that it becomes difficult for us to see the potential in someone that will take place later. Hatta to the extent that at times it's even difficult for parents to see the potential in their own children. Because we're so focused on the now and the present that the potential of this person becomes blurry to us. We need to become people that if we're given that responsibility, or if we're given some level of autonomy to see who to put where, see potential in people. Don't just look at them in that moment and say, this person can only do this. Yesterday we spoke about Bilal. The Prophet saw potential in him that nobody saw. That this slave will one day become the chief of staff of my entire office. And he saw that potential. Wasn't set on this person can only do this. It can happen with board members in the masjid, it can happen with elders, that this person has no potential. Right now, but see the potential that can take place and support him in doing that. Or else if we just look at people where they are, then we shouldn't be where we are right now. Someone saw potential in you and I as well. When they gave us a chance at whatever you were given a chance at, whether it was university or whether it was a job for us at studying where we studied, someone saw potential in us. And being able to see the potential in someone requires love. Either requires love for them or it requires love for what you're serving. Like the Prophet loved his deen and he loved the individuals. So he saw the potential in the people that they one day can serve as well. Like Umar radiallahu anhu, his aunt would say to him that one day, once upon a time, Ya Umar, you were someone who was unable to handle and manage a flock of sheep. A herd of sheep. And now you are the ruler of 1/3 or 2/3 of the world. Like that potential was there because Abu Bakr saw it. That you can do this, I believe in you. And of course it shouldn't be misplaced because it's also a responsibility to choose someone. But we shouldn't always see someone at where they are and say, I don't know, this is not the right person. Well, maybe they do in the future. Maybe they have the potential. Give them a try, give them a shot. Right? If we're looking for a perfect person, then why are we even there? So this is concept of having firasa. It comes when you know what you're doing, what you're serving in, and when you have love for it, like scouts, like recruits. They're skilled in it. And this is shown from the words that the Aziz says. The Aziz, after purchasing Yusuf, he comes to his wife, لِإِمْرَأَتِهِ. He says, لِإِمْرَأَتِهِ. He comes to his wife, whose name is known to be Zulaykha, and he says, أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَى. أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَى. Which master ever says, honor my slave? Akrimi literally means honor him, honor his stay, honor his space, give him privacy, take care of him. In the tafsir it mentions, take care of him as if he was your own child. Albisuhu min libasihim. Like, clothe him as people would clothe their children. Feed him, because normally a slave would be made to dress differently, right? So there's a class thing over there, right? They would be made to eat different food. This is why the Prophet said, in our beautiful tradition, when there was slavery that continued from Jahiliyyah, the Prophet of Allah taught the companions that make them eat with you. Can you like just imagine that? Like, this person, you were used to them being your slave before Islam, they still happen to be your slave, and the Prophet is saying, hey, make sure they eat with you in your own plate. And if they don't eat with you in your own plate, just give them a bite or two from your hands. Just feed them a bite or two from your own hands. To show love, to show that we're equal. Our situation doesn't make you, my situation doesn't make you better or worse than me. So he says to his wife, Akrimi mathwa. Honor the slave, honor his stay. And then he says to her, Asa an yanfa'ana. This shows how much firasa he had. Asa an yanfa'ana. Perhaps one day he can benefit us. I know today he looks like a young boy who's weak, doesn't have much to offer to us, but one day he will benefit us. أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. Or we can take him in as our child, because they had no children. Or we can make him, what we would say, we can adopt him. Tabanni. Because at that time, it was normal to take someone and make them your own son. Like how the Prophet did with Zayd ibn Haritha. Right? Adoption is permissible in Islam. Tabanni isn't. Tabanni simply means that if you take someone, and adoption is encouraged. It's encouraged. It's beyond us why it's such a taboo thing to take a child and bring them into your own home. Right? I can understand the liability and the responsibility, that's fine, but it's not something which Sharia frowns upon, it's something that Sharia encourages. What cannot be done is to change the name of the child. And there is so much wisdom in that. What did the slave owners do when they brought slaves to America? The first thing they did was change the names to remove that person's identity. This person will never know who his father is. They will never know what their lineage actually is. They will never know what their background actually is, which is, it's weakening. It makes a person feel very weak and vulnerable. I don't know where I'm from. That is impermissible. Because everyone should know where they're from and who they are. But you can bring them in. So he says, maybe we can take this child, this young boy. I know he looks weak, but one day he may benefit us. Or we can just adopt the kid. وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And this is how, answering the earlier question, that we makkanna. The word makan in Arabic means to make space. وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. This is how we open up. This is how we opened up space for Yusuf on the earth. Meaning, despite the fact that his brothers were attempting to kill him, people thought that he was going to become a slave and he was going to work and he was going to be like, he was going to be humiliated. Allah said, no, see what I did? I made the Aziz of Misr purchase him. And I made the Aziz of Misr honor him. Makanna li Yusuf fil ard. We opened up the earth for Yusuf, despite the fact that he was considered to be a slave. وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And we taught him the interpretation of dreams, which was seen to be the greatest skill of that time. Like for example, that which pays the most. In our time, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be medicine. The skill that was the most revered skill at the time of Yusuf was the ability to interpret dreams. This is why you see later on, when the Fir'aun, started having a panic attack and had his anxiety about a child being born, it was interpretation of a dream. They relied on it. So Allah says, وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. We taught Yusuf how to interpret dreams. In some narrations it mentions not that we taught him how to interpret dreams, we taught him not only to interpret dreams, but to be able to see the interpretation of the reality that he was in. Like, I see there's a goodness within what's happening to me. Like, some can interpret the dream, but what's happening to them in that very moment, they struggle to be able to explain. نُعَلِّمَهُ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. Allah ends off this verse by saying, وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. Allah is always in control of all of His affairs. Allah is always in control. Ghalib means dominant. He is not attempting to be in control. He is dominant in the control that He has over all amrihi, all of His matters. Because one could say that, how did Allah let this happen? How did Allah is saying, Ghalibun ala amrihi. I am dominant. I know exactly what happened. I'm aware of what happened. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Fath, He says, in the discussion of Surah Fath, when Hudaybiyah took place, where the Prophet and the Sahaba could not go into Mecca, the ayah mentions that, إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Azizul Hakim. Allah, you're the most, Allah is saying to the Sahaba as these verses were revealed. As the verses were revealed, وَلِلَّهِ جُنُودُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. Both are mentioned. Because the Sahaba were like, man, how did we as believers supporting the Prophet for all these years, how did we get stopped from doing something good? Like not even doing something haram. Doing something good. Allah says, look man, Aziz and Hakim. I am the most mighty. I could have let you in. So don't think that it's, na'udhu billah, weakness from me. But then you might be thinking, then why did you not let me in? Hakim. There's a wisdom behind that as well. Wallahu ghalibun ala amrihi. This means there is no matter that is too small that Allah doesn't have control of. Neither is a matter too big that Allah loses control of it. There are some people who are good desk managers. They can be a manager of miscellaneous tasks. They can handle small tasks. They can manage it. But then if you give them an entire project, it becomes too big for them. There are some people who are very good at handling large projects. They're very good operation in their ops. But if you give them the responsibility of handling the office stuff, they can't do it. Because they're so used to handling the operations. Wallahu ghalibun ala amrihi. There is nothing that is too small or too big for Allah. يا بني إنها إن تكن مثقال حبة من خردل أو تكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله. If there was a sin that you committed in a cave behind a rock, Allah knows about it. Luqman tells his son. Nothing too small. Allah hears the footsteps of even the ant that is walking in the darkness of the night where no one can see it. So, Wallahu ghalibun ala amrihi means for you and I, that affair or that matter that I am struggling with, though people may seem to make us feel like it's very insignificant, no one cares, Allah cares about it. Allah cares about that matter. I lost this. The Prophet taught the Sahaba, Aisha radiallahu anha says that the Prophet taught us to make dua for our shoelaces. If the shoelace breaks, if the sole of our shoes fall off, whatever. The Prophet said, make dua for it. Meaning there's nothing, sometimes we think that, oh no, Allah, it's like Allah has office hours. Yeah, the best time is tahajjud, but there's no time that is a bad time. Every time works. Even after a sin you make dua, it works. Shaitan made a dua after the gravest sin that anyone can commit. And that dua was also accepted. Oh Allah, let me live forever. Allah accepted his dua. There's no bad time to make a dua. There are better times to make a dua. But there's no bad time to make a dua. Like how people say, there's no bad time to invest in blue chip stocks. Bad example, but there's no bad time to invest in Amazon or Microsoft. There are what? Better times to invest in it. But they're blue chip, they're always going to go up. Whether they go up 5%, 3%, they're always going to move up. There's no bad time to ask Allah for something. غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ. And you can't think that, no, this thing is so insignificant, what's the point of making, no, Allah has control of that thing that you think is mundane. غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ. I know what's happening with Yusuf, and it's happening through me. قُلْ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Everything happens through Allah's decision and decree. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. However, most people think that they're in control. This is what this ayah means. Most people, they think that they are in control. Oh, أَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. They think they're in control. Because they're pushing the button, they think they control it. Allah said, no. I am controlling that button. The people of Ibrahim thought they were in control when they threw Ibrahim into the fire. They thought they were in control. Allah, you're not in control. I'm in control. غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ. Like my father would give this example, and I've shared it before. Like a person who turns on, like a person asks, like, how does water come from the pipe? And he turns the tap and water starts coming. So the youngster, the child, hopefully not an adult, because it would be problematic if the adult thinks this way. If the child says, yeah, water comes when you turn the tap on. Obviously when you turn the tap on, water comes. So this kid, when he walks into like Value City or any furniture store where there are taps, he's going to think that tap turns on, water comes. Like how we think we're in control. I press this button, I go there, and if I purchase this house or if I get that job, it's like pressing the button. Allah is saying, no, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Most people think that they're in control. That's why they become either very anxious or very arrogant. So when a person thinks they're in control, one of these two things do happen. You become very anxious because you can't get it done, or you become very arrogant because you do get it done. And both are harmful. Both are harmful. So it's like that child that thinks that water turns on when you just flip the switch of the tap on. But the reality is, behind that tap, there are pipes that go beyond what we could imagine. Pipes that are dug underneath the ground that connect to the city, that these pipes go from one place to the next where the water is connected. Now when you turn the tap on, there's water that comes. The control is not in the tap. The control is in what the tap is connected to. Similarly, the control is not in us. The control is built on our relationship in a connection to Allah. And that's the connection that the pipes have to the source of water. Similarly, that is built upon our connection to the source of goodness, بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the tap that brings the water, it's the connection that the tap has. وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. Allah has dominance over every matter that is taking place. But most people think that they're in control. Most people think that their word and their decision is what makes the wheels move of the world. That's not the reality. That's what people think when they think, if I, na'udhu billah, have this genocide and kill these kids, watch what happens, this place will become. Allah is saying, no. غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. You think you're in control. But I'm actually in control. I'm the one that, like the most unintelligent thing is like when you actually think you have control but you don't. You think that you actually can, we do that with kids. We make them drive like these fake cars. Like they think that it's like actually moving. But it's like, it's not you, it's what someone else doing it. It's not actually you, right? Wallahu ghalibun ala amrihi. Allah lets us, people may think they're in control, Allah lets us feel that way, but the reality is that Allah is the one that allows that when you turn the tap on, for the water to actually come. Or else, it's just a tap. It's not the source of water. It's not my job that gives me money. It's my relationship to Allah. And again, this may sound like, but that doesn't make sense. I work. Yeah, but the work that I have is because of my relationship with Allah. But what do non-Muslims have? Because the system of rizq of this dunya is not the same for Muslims and non-Muslims. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ. Allah talks about this. وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا. They don't think that I allow the people of dunya, i.e. the disbelievers, to have dunya because I love them. I let them have it because this is all they will have. And one tafsir it says, like, it wouldn't be adl. It would not be adl for Allah to make them, for Allah to punish them in dunya and also punish them in akhirah. So Allah let them enjoy in dunya, whereas they will be punished in the akhirah. The system in where non-Muslims are able to gain rizq in regards to their relationship with Allah is not the same for Muslims. Yes, in regards to their akhlaq, it's the same. Lying, dishonesty, that will be the same, because that's part of the qada and the rule of this world, but not the rule of the akhirah. So all of that is wallahu ghalibun ala amri. Allah is dominant in all of His affairs. However, most people don't recognize it and they think that they're in control. This is mentioned at the end of the story because one could think Yusuf being thrown into the well means that he's finished. One could think that Yusuf being bought out as a slave and sold as a slave, okay, he's finished. But Allah is saying, no, you're not actually in control. You think the puzzles are falling in place, but what's actually happening is what I want it to happen. And he's going to become the minister of Egypt in a few years. And this is where we'll stop. Inshallah, may Allah allow us to continue benefiting from the beautiful wisdoms that are extracted by our mufassirun in this surah. And inshallah, allow us to continue, taking steps towards the end of it. I know we're done about, 21 verses, which is, alhamdulillah, which is a fair bit. And hopefully we'll keep moving along, inshallah ta'ala. Hopefully we don't miss any more sessions and we're able to continue finishing 3-4 ayat every week. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Allah bless you all. We'll get started with our classes there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.